Good evening, everybody. We will begin this Committee of the Whole meeting on Monday, November the 3rd. It is 6 p.m. and we will begin with our land acknowledgement. With gratitude, the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands acknowledges these lands and waters are traditional territory of the Algonquin, Mississaugas, Mohawk, and Huron-Wendat. To recognize the role the township must play in truth and reconciliation, we also acknowledge the displacement of these peoples. Additionally, the township would like to respectfully acknowledge the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who also call this place home. We make this land acknowledgement to honor the Indigenous ancestors who have stewarded these lands and waters since time immemorial. Moving on to number 3 of the adoption of the agenda. The motion comes forward from Councillor Mabey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Foti, that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it is carried. Next item is declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Does anybody have an interest to declare? I have no hands up. There is a closed session, but we will put that off until the end of the meeting, which is number 16. And then we have delegations this evening. So 6.1, we have Wendy Merkley, parking in Rockport for Church of the Redeemer. Wendy is going to present and discuss challenges with parking in Rockport at the Church of the Redeemer. Photographs have been provided for context in our packages, but if you'd like to come to the podium, Wendy, you can speak.
Thank you. You do have the photographs in front of you, do you? Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors, and staff, and audience. I appreciate the opportunity to present our concern on behalf of the Church of Redeemer at 2 Front Street in Rockport. I am Wendy Merkley. I'm a warden at the church, and I'm speaking on behalf of the congregation, and some of whom are here tonight. The Church of Redeemer was completed and opened in 1896, and it sits at the civic address of 2 Front Street. It's a really small parcel of land, and we do not and have never had a parking lot. For decades and decades, the congregation have parked along the edge of the road to attend church service and church functions. Even in the winter, we've not had any problems or incidents with vehicles at the church or blocking the road. We knew the no parking rule existed, and this spring we saw more signs go up. But we assumed, we know what that spells, that any bylaw officer would not enforce this during the church service. We were totally shocked when one of our congregation members went out to find a ticket on their car after attending church. Naively, we assumed this would be enforced for tourists and when things got crowded, so people didn't park trucks and trailers and stuff there, and we just assumed that we would sort of get a pass on that. It sent shockwaves through the congregation. A few people stopped coming for a while. People can't walk from the sidewalk where there is parking. Some of our congregation cannot walk that far. So one of our members has offered to drive cars down to St. Brendan and let people get out and drive and park their car. This is not really a good working solution. The other real impact that this had was that somebody came to attend church, and when they didn't see any cars around, they left. They later went to the Anglican Church in Gananoque, and they were telling their story how there was nobody at the Church of Redeemer in Rockport. To their surprise, our priest is the same priest in Gananoque, so he got to hear the story firsthand, and he said, yes, we were inside. Just over 25 years ago, we added an addition on the east end of the church. We had to have a lot of concessions, but in order to keep the church a functioning church, we had to add a washroom and handicap access and the access sidewalk. So now the access sidewalk that we have to the back door is right beside, just down from the no parking sign, so people can't use the access entrance. The no parking sign to the north of the church is about 50 feet. If you look at the picture of that was provided, you'll see the mailboxes. And the church, the no parking sign is just north of that mailboxes. Then if you look at the one to the south, you'll see the no parking sign. And it is just where the driveway is. I had my pictures up, but I've lost them. You'll see the no parking sign. So those two signs, what we're asking for is that they be designated as except Sunday. We understand, we talked to a few other towns, and that's what they do. They make an exception for churches on Sunday. So we would like the sign to the north to point south and the sign to the south to point north and say except Sunday, which would deal with our problem. There's a vacant lot there just east of us that belongs to the boat line. It's not vacant, but we can pull well off the road, and people do, because it's pretty gradual. So that's where the majority of people park, and then the handicap park right beside the church. During 2024, we celebrated 4 90th birthdays in our congregation. Like most churches these days, our congregation is 90% 70 and older. So having to have limited walking and using the access is getting to be essential for us to stay viable. So we're here tonight to ask that council support our request to modify the parking restrictions at this point of Front Street to add except Sundays. We hope this was an unintended consequence of a blanket action of changing a bylaw and enacting a bylaw, and that once everybody realized the impact and implications, the council will willingly direct staff, and that staff will agree to modify the parking on the east side only along 2 Front Street. We do have other events occasionally, like weddings and funerals, and the odd fundraiser. And we would like to ask that the bylaw officer would give a pass to the area if there's a funeral or a wedding or a fundraiser going on. We wish to remain a vibrant church. We know St. Brendan's is struggling. We lost our United Church, and we've worked really hard to keep this church going and viable and vibrant and a part of the community. And this can make the difference of whether people are going to be able to come to church on Sunday. So we really want you to agree that this is a reasonable request. We thank you for the opportunity to explain what happened. We hope and we pray that you guys will support us and that we will be able to bring back the cars to the front of the church on Sunday. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Are there questions for the presenter? I have 2 hands up. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Foti, and then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, Wendy, you had indicated those 2 signs, if worded and directed properly, does it give you enough parking?
For the most part, yeah. It's really, you can't park anywhere else. So if those 2 signs are labeled and point, then we'll be okay.
And as you had indicated, St. Brendan's parking lot's not far away for those that are able to walk further.
Yeah, for some of us can park down there, yeah.
If you
When we have a larger crowd, yeah.
right, be it a funeral or a celebration or something.
Yeah. We've worked with them. We work back and forth. So.
Okay. Well, I can promise you if there's an issue there, call me personally. I'll talk to the powers to be, not those ones, the one that are on the ground. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Councillor Maybe, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Wendy. What time is your service in the morning, Sunday morning?
Usually 9. Sometimes we switch and go to 11 because we share with Gananoque.
Correct. Does that happen very often that you switch to 11, or is it?
No, and once a month we have coffee after church, and so there's times we're still there at 11 or 12.
Okay. And the funerals, weddings, fundraiser events, how often do you have those during the year?
Well, we have maybe 2 or 3 a year, and we don't have many weddings or many funerals. We do have a Cafe Redeemer. Some of you have been
Mhm.
on the second Thursday of every month, and that will still be a challenge for us.
Okay. And as a follow-up, what is your average attendance in church? Churches are struggling all over the place, but that gives us kind of a basis of how many cars might be parked in the area.
We have to do an average, and last year our average was 21.
Okay. And some of those people are two to a car type thing, or
Sorry.
there's two to a car sometimes, or
Well, if we use that space wisely, we can get 3 by the church and 5 down there.
okay.
And we do have 2 spots around at the back that we can use. So it was working fine. And when we have extras, then we direct them down to St. Brendan's.
Okay. Thank you.
There's no other place you could give us any more because it wouldn't make sense to do it on the other side of the road either.
Right.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff. If barring Sundays for the second part of Wendy's comments with events and other things, would that not be covered under our events bylaw? Like if they called in for an event, could we not then waive the parking such as we do for Lansdowne Fair
Stuff.
or any of the other things that happen in Sully's Bay, Lyndhurst?
Through you, those exceptions were done through resolution of council with respect to the events, so Lansdowne Fair and some of the other ones where we do cover the signs. So staff would be looking for resolution from council.
Okay. I think those are the hands up. So thank you very much for your presentation. Notices of motion are later in the agenda. And I would imagine there might be something coming forward.
So somebody will call me. Is that how I'll find it?
We'll send notice once the notice of motion is received and then put before council. Notices of motion are number 13 on the agenda this evening. And then they would come to council next week. And so we can email it to you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks.
for your time.
No problem. Okay. So with that, we are on to number 7, which is briefings. And this evening we have AECOM presentation in regards to the 401 Gananoque to Mallorytown and Gananoque to Kingston. They're presenting virtually and sharing presentations regarding the 401 expansion project from Gananoque to Mallorytown and Gananoque to Kingston. And there is quite a lengthy list, and there's 2 separate lists. So there is a team from Kingston to Gananoque, Katie Sura, Aaron Pipe, Michael Weldon, Mir Hyder, Britta Pekowski. If I'm saying this wrong, please forgive me. Lucy Horn and Nelson Gonzalez Toledo. And then the Gananoque to the Mallorytown project team is David Brake, Amanda Dixon, John Newman, Heather Notbeck, Mark Albertson, Lucy Horn, and Nelson Gonzalez Toledo. So those are the 2 teams, and they are with us online. We have Michael Weldon, I believe we can see.
Yes.
Hi. I'm craning my neck to look up at the TV. I apologize. So you're here to give us a briefing on next steps and what you guys are doing and how we are all could be part of it and providing comment and all that kind of good stuff, correct?
That's right. And I think I've shared my screen. Can you guys see this now?
Nope, I cannot see.
Oh,
your
sorry.
Oh,
Let me just
there, we got
try
it
this.
now.
Okay. All right. So you see the one that says the Kingston to Gananoque.
That's the one.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. So again, my name is Michael Weldon. I'm the project manager with AECOM for one of the projects. As mentioned, I there is a big list. I don't think everyone is quite here on the line that was on that list. But I'll just quickly say from MTO, we have Katie Sura and Dave Brake for the 2 different teams. And then from AECOM, myself, John Newman, Heather Notbeck, Britta Petkowski, Mir Heider, and Mark Albertson. So the 2 projects are very similar in scope, the types of projects they are. So we have 2 separate sets of presentations, but the material is very similar. So I'm going to walk through the first one. A lot of the info that's in here. I think the second one can be focused more on some of the specific interchanges, because again, a lot of it is the same type of stuff. So I think many of you may have already seen a lot of this material. We did have 2 separate public information centers over the past few weeks, one for each project that are adjacent to each other. So a lot of the content in here is the same, but we just wanted to give a formal presentation from both jobs to council. Again, they're structured as separate presentations, but most of the material is the same. So I will skim through as much as I can, just in the interest of time, maybe focus a little bit more on some of the interchange options. But again, a lot of this stuff, it's all available online. A lot of it has been presented before at that public information center that many of you may have attended already. So again, I will skip over much of this. I think in the slide deck, the agenda, you guys have these presentations that are actually reversed. So I'm starting from the Kingston to Gananoque stretch. Again, this applies basically to both of them. So what we're undertaking, so Minister of Transportation, they've basically retained AECOM to undertake these class environmental assessment studies. Really, the focus of both studies is to look at the rehab replacement needs of the bridges along the 401, interchange improvements and upgrades that may be needed, and is essentially protecting and establishing the footprint of 401, what it needs to be down the road, 6 lanes and ultimate 8 lanes. Really, to be clear, there isn't a timeline for that widening, for that expansion. It's not something that's being programmed yet, but we're undertaking these studies just to really understand, well, what does it need to look like in the future? Where do the bridges need to be replaced? Where does the interchanges have to look like? So at the end of these studies, essentially, the ministry will have the ability to protect the corridor, which will help future expansion plans and growth and development in the area. So that's kind of just the overarching part of it. Both assignments, I mean, there's a lot of work going on. These are both multi-year studies. There's environmental studies that we look at what's out there, kind of what the impacts will be of any of the works that we're doing. There's traffic analysis, of course. There's looking at the bridges and the culverts that are out there, drainage systems, what needs to be done to fix them up, to improve things, looking at electrical work, geotechnical work. So there's a whole range of things that go into these environmental assessment studies. Again, just MTO or adjacent studies. So this is, well, both of these, they're not just standalone studies. There's a number of these other studies that MTO is undertaking along the corridor. Current ongoing ones, there's one between Belleville and Kingston, which is very similar. Of course, the one just east of the one we're doing, the Kingston or the Gananoque to Mallorytown, that we presented after. And then there's another one, Mallorytown over to Brockville. So huge stretches. I know there's a lot of other sections on the 401 as well that have done these similar types of studies, either ongoing or they've been completed in the past. Each of them, they all have their own project website, all public consultation. There's kind of similar types of works for all of them. So this board just kind of outlines the environmental assessment process. And again, I'm not going to go through all this in detail, but essentially these are called Group B projects. They're undertaken under the MTO, the Class Environmental Assessment Study. So it's an approved process that's followed for highway planning, design jobs, and construction projects. A big part of these is always consultation. So with Indigenous communities, municipal staff and council, emergency services, members of the public, various sources or methods of consultation that we use. We have direct mail letouts or direct mail mailouts. We have a project website for each of them. We have a telephone number, newspaper notices at key milestones. So for example, when we had the most recent public information center, there were news ads, there was mail outs for people as well. So the steps on the right there just kind of outline the whole EA process, or environmental assessment process. We're still in the early stages for both studies. Essentially, we've developed alternatives and now we're nailing them down a little bit more and evaluating them, which I'll get into shortly. So environmental investigations, again, this is just the types of studies that are being done for both assignments, various environmental field works, archaeology, fish and fish habitat, terrestrial. These are all things that we do background reviews on so we can better understand, what the impacts are of whether it's the future expansion, whether it's of the interchange upgrades, modifications. So there's a lot of work going on along the corridor. This board here, it's problems and opportunities. It's kind of it's a statement that's used for these environmental assessments. You have to really figure out, well, what are we trying to solve here? What is the problem? And then how do we address that through the opportunities? So I've already mentioned really the problems here, that the main one is the bridges and the culverts. They are getting up nearing the end of their service life. They will need to be replaced, maybe not next year, but 10 years, maybe 15 years, depending on the location. So there's that's a key part of it. Obviously the bridges, the traffic needs at some of the interchanges as well. Some of them don't meet geometric standards of today. Maybe they did before, but standards have changed. So essentially we're looking at figuring out what the corridor needs to look like now, and then and then as noted there, recommended plan at the end of the study will be designated and confirmed, and basically protecting the corridor for property development and so on. So that's kind of at the completion of the job where we end up with. High level study process. So we start looking at higher alternatives to the undertaking, they're called. But then we develop a set of alternatives, mainly for the interchanges and bridges. That's called the long list at first. We do initial screening of those. That's what was essentially presented at the most recent public information centers in the past couple of weeks. We take those, we then evaluate them, what's called the shortlist alternatives, do the more detailed assessment and evaluation of each of those. And then based on that, we develop the recommended plan, what it will actually look like in the future. So that second part will all be presented at a follow-up set of public information centers. Right now, we're looking at probably fall or so of next year. So for some of the long list alternatives, and I guess, first of all, with the highway itself, again, it is online. It's in the slide decks that were handed out, or that's part of the agenda. So the widening itself, we just have various options on how you might go from 4 lanes to 8 lanes in the future. At least the study in the West, the majority of the highway today basically has the barrier in the middle. It's what's called an urban cross section. So in the future, we would look at just adding the lanes likely to the outside. We may reconstruct the median a little bit to narrow it down a little bit. I think the study to the east, the Gananoque Way to Mallorytown, also looking at maybe expanding all to one side or the other. We also have sections more so on the eastern study area where it's the rural median or grass median. Options like that, we would look at either maybe adding lanes to the outside, maybe adding 1 lane to the outside, 1 to the inside, all to the inside. Again, it'll vary depending on the location. And this is just, we would be basically looking at each section, seeing what works best in each location, how it works with the surrounding environment. And ultimately, it's really for planning for the bridges, planning for the interchanges, because like I said, this isn't something that is going out tomorrow or next year with the actual widening itself. So Have a few slides now on some of the interchanges itself. I'm going to switch over to a different slide just because the ones in there aren't very clear. So starting over the west end of Gananoque anyway, County Road 32. Again, I'm not going to go through these in a ton of detail here, but we had 5 what we call the long list alternatives for the interchange itself. We screened that down to 3 of them. Basically though, and these are just concept level or high level at this point, but you know, so we look at replacing the bridge. Maybe these ones we're showing them all to the east, but the first option is basically maintaining the same type of configuration with the ramp movements. So you have to, you know, if you want to go northbound on County Road 32 to East 401, you still make that left turn to get on the highway. So it's just upgrades to some of the ramp geometry. And again, how to accommodate the bridge itself, the bridge replacement. So this is something we're looking at further, of course. We have another one where we add in, basically, it's called the Parklow A4. So we add in those direct ramps, so you no longer have those left turn lanes. So northbound to eastbound, southbound to westbound. So this is something that we're looking at further and considering going forward. We have what's called a diamond interchange, as the name says. So various reasons this one is not being carried forward any further. So I'm not gonna, again, I'll skim over these as much as I can. And then I'll just jump to alternative 5 that we're carrying forward as well for further review still. It's called the Parklow AB style of interchange. Essentially, the only difference here with one of the other options is on the north side. So your westbound off-ramp to come off the 401 would be on the other side, the far side of the bridge, and you have this loop ramp there. So the benefit of that relative to the prior one in this particular location, maybe you just get a little more spacing between the interchange and Thousand Islands Parkway. So from a traffic perspective, it could help out. Thousand Islands Parkway itself and 401, the interchange. So this is certainly the one in our study anyway that has had the most public input. I think the biggest concern. So right now you just have the access from Thousand Islands Parkway westbound to get onto the West 401, but you've got that left side merge that comes in. So you're coming in on the fast lane. So we do have an option that continues that, but just replaces the bridge, but we're not carrying that one forward. So we have a couple of alternatives, and I'll just jump to this second one called the alternative 2B. So the bridge itself gets replaced, but we now come in on the right side. It's a right side merge, more standard, typical configuration. So it's from a safety perspective and operations would help. With this one, we're also showing a realignment of the eastbound lanes of 401 just to kind of come right beside the westbound lanes. So that's the difference between this alternative 2B and the prior one. So this is definitely something we're looking at further. Again, I'll just jump to the ones that we're still considering more. We have one that provides a loop ramp here. So to go north, if you're coming west from Thousand Islands to go westbound on 401, you just have that loop ramp, and it gives a little more spacing along the 401 to County Road 32. So this is something we're still looking at. And then the final options we have are actually adding additional movements at the interchange than what's out there today. So we would essentially have full moves. So you could come from westbound 401 to go onto the Thousand Islands Parkway, for example. So this is one of them. I won't explain all of this right now, but the thing to note with these ones is if we did provide these extra ramp movements at Thousand Islands Parkway, you know, there's also the adjacent interchange at Highway 2. May look at closing some of those ramps or that interchange altogether. So this is an option that we're still carrying forward. And then we have finally alternative 5, again, where this one you come from Thousand Islands Parkway, make a loop to get onto the 401, but you also have that off ramp from westbound 401. So all things that we're looking at now from a traffic perspective and seeing kind of how the impacts are with these, how they would work best with the surrounding environment. Just a couple more here is Highway 2. So again, this is the adjacent interchange, Highway 2 and 401. currently just has a westbound off-ramp and an eastbound on-ramp. So this first option, we're looking to replace the bridge just east of the existing bridge, and basically reconstruct the same ramps that are out there today. We have a second one here, same type of thing. We keep the same configuration, but we make some adjustments to the westbound ramp geometry just to improve it a little bit. We have an option here, option 2, that we're still looking at. So this one, right now, there's a westbound Highway 2 to go east on the 401. You've got a really tight left turn, which is maintained with the other alternatives, but this one gets rid of that and provides a loop ramp to get on the highway, so maybe a bit of a safety improvement. And then a number of other options that we've screened out. Again, I'm not going to go through those right now, but finally we have an option that gets rid of the ramps at Highway 2. This would likely only really be considered if we had those extra movements at Thousand Parkway that I showed just prior to this one. And finally, down at Highway 2, King Street, and Thousand Islands Parkway itself. So we're looking at this interchange too. Really at this one, we're not really anticipating significant changes, but we are looking at the bridge and replacing it. So with the first option, we just replace the bridge, keep the rest of the ramps that are out there today. We have one where we're looking at actually changing the signalized intersections and replacing them with roundabouts. It's called a dumbbell interchange. So again, we'll look at the traffic impacts, the benefits, see how that works, if there's really any merit in doing that. And then one where we, again, replace the bridge, but we construct what's called a single point urban interchange. This is a little more unique and not too typical in Ontario, at least, where all of the ramp movements come from Thousand Islands Parkway into one location. So instead of the 2 traffic signals out there today, everything gets consolidated into one larger intersection, signalized intersection that would essentially be beneath the bridge. So again, it's called a SPUI for short. So that's one we're still looking at. And then the final one is removing the bridge altogether and actually just putting a roundabout there. So you'd come off the highway into a roundabout and just kind of help to consolidate a lot of those movements. Again, we're now doing the traffic assessment and really seeing how this would operate, if there's really any merit to it, or if it should not be considered further. So just back to these slide decks. Again, these are the same things that I just was showing. So other locations along the corridor. So we're considering a couple other bridge replacements as well. We're not showing specific alternatives yet. I think these are more to the west for the most part, but we're looking at how they would be replaced, where they might go. A key one, I guess, through here is the Gananoque River Bridge, just at the west end, west of County Road 32. So once we understand a bit better how the other ramp movements or the adjacent interchange would work, how the cross section of 401 would look, that's when we'll determine exactly how that bridge is replaced in the future when it needs to be. We have a few structural culverts beneath the 401. Again, these are things that we're just looking at how they might be addressed and accommodated within a future footprint of 401. So whether these culverts get replaced, whether you replace them with maybe a larger bridge, whether they just get rehabilitated and maybe extended if they need to be to accommodate the highway widening, or possibly constructing retaining walls and just keeping what's out there today. So again, this is just more of one of the types of things you don't really see too much along the highway, but it's certainly part of what we're doing here. So finally, for my part, just a quick summary of that first public information center that we had for the Western study. This one was held back in early October, Lou Jeffries Arena. So we had 51 stakeholders signed the register. So pretty good turnout for this type of meeting, actually. A number of different types of comments received both verbally, and we've received a number of them after the fact written. So certainly we heard about comments about wildlife crossings. I think the study to the east, that was more of an issue there. But but that's something that we've heard and we're looking at. General comments and concerns about noise, whether it's existing or future, light pollution, impacts on groundwater, property acquisition. That's always something there's concerns with if their property is going to be impacted and how that would work. We had some comments about maybe considering other sustainable transportation options like rail or public transit over highway expansion. And then in general, I mean, there was a lot of positive feedback just about the process and how the study has been going. Just some general inputs and suggestions on moving forward. So I think that's pretty much it. Oh, last one for me anyway, and I guess it would apply to the other job as well. So what we do next after the Public Information Center. So we're looking at all the input received on the alternatives so far, looking at how it might affect our evaluation now of the options that we're considering further, maybe how the impacts are and how to reduce those. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be coming back for that second Public Information Center, likely in the fall or so of next year, just to present the evaluation, the final one, and the alternatives, and basically the technically preferred plan. At the completion of this study, we prepare what's called a Transportation Environmental Study Report, essentially documents the entire study, the impacts. That is available for public comment. That would be not till likely winter of next year, of 2026 into 2027. So that's it for my part. I suspect there's maybe some questions or comments, but I think maybe we should just continue with the next one and then we can come back because it is, again, just I think some different alternatives for that one. So I guess Heather,
if I can stop you, if we could have the questions on this one taken care of, and that way we'll just
Sure.
And so I have some questions from council members. So I have Councillor Maybe and then Deputy Mayor Fody that have some questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. And again, I did attend this particular viewing of this material at the Gananoque Recreation Center, and a great job. And thank you for giving the opportunity to the community to actually look at this before we go too far. So that's a wonderful thing. So I have a few questions here. And with this particular section of the road, there is already a medium barrier there. Will it be rebuilt and with the potential of lighting throughout the length of this portion? That's question number one. Question number two, 32 highway, the suggestion would be option number one with a traffic light on the highway. A lot of traffic coming in and out of Gananoque there poses a lot of backups, particularly on the eastbound rampway entering Gananoque. And none of your options actually looked at that rampway in another alternative. So that's the only way of solving that is having a traffic light there. And to go along with that particular rampway being short as it is, and conversation about the Gananoque Bridge being actually redone or widened to actually put the rampway starting before the bridge to continue on to the rampway, which is a little bit different configuration than the present one. So that would be a vast improvement because it is very short at this moment. For the Highway 2, again, this is my favorite pet peeve, I have to admit. Westbound 401 to Highway 2, it's either option 1 or 1A or 1B with a red light that says stop, because we've had many situations there and some serious injuries have happened, and we have been actually asking for a red light here for a long time, and I do think it's needed if we're going to continue with the rampway where it is, or if we get rid of all the rampways there, put them on the parkway. I don't know whether that's actually a good option either. Moving on, Highway 2 to Thousand Island Parkway, it's option either 1 or 2 to actually bring that traffic from the parkway heading west across the road. So it does flow properly because of, one that is right there, number 2, 1A or 1B is your options on that one. Yeah.
Down here, sorry, or
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Or was yeah.
And highway to the Thousand Island Parkway 1 or 2. Yes. And then another question was all the culverts, and we heard this at the second viewing that we had of the improvements to the highway, is the question about animal migration across the road, and that some of these culverts are very small and don't allow for walking animals to get underneath. So there was talk about having a bridge in place, small bridges, which have embankments on each side for the animals to get across. So my question there was, with that bridge, how much frost or freezing temperatures will affect those bridges in our winter months? And can we mitigate that in any fashion to keep our public safe on those roadways? And then again, Aqua Bridge, and back to Joyceville interchange. You don't again, with that alternative, the eastbound traffic and trucks, they come off and go to that particular service center. And then to get back on the highway to go east, they have to turn left. I've seen many bottlenecks there. So a rampway heading east from the east side of Joyceville Road would be very helpful in not having those backups of tractor trailers on Joyceville Road. And I think that's all the questions I had on that one.
I think there was more suggestions of your preference than
Yeah.
questions. There was,
Well,
so the
whether
one,
there's answers. Yeah.
so there was the first question, there was a
Yeah.
question right at the beginning. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I think that was the one about rebuilding the median barrier and lighting. I mean, rebuilding the median, that would depend on the age and condition. Likely, if it was in poor shape, it would be. And in terms of lighting, though, definitely as part of this, I mean, we would typically be looking at, well, what is the warrant for illumination along the corridor if it's needed, based on the geometrics, based on the traffic volumes. So I can't say at this point for sure whether it would or wouldn't be. It would be something that once we get a plan for, future 6 lanes, ultimate 8 lanes, we would have to look at that and see if it's necessary. I think most other places west of here where it's maybe already 6 lanes, other than right through urban sections, you don't have the lighting in there, just based on various warrants, but it's something that we would have to look at. So I can't answer for sure yet on that one.
Just as a follow-up.
Quickly.
Just as a follow-up, this plan for this road is a 60-year kind of lifespan. So that's where I'd kind of go with the lighting. Would there be conduit then possibly put in place for the future lighting condition?
Typically when we do the lighting warrants, it might look like 40 years out for that purpose. They can be added later if need be. I mean, I know other studies where we've even gone to 10 lanes on the highway. Sometimes it hasn't been necessary, but it is an option. Like if it was determined that yes, it will be needed down the road, then we may look at adding conduits down in the median barrier. But at this point, I can't say 100% if that would be the case or not.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Michael, I'm in the transportation, the freight industry. That's what I do. Joyceville Road, don't touch it. All those ramps are plenty long enough. When trucks are turning, going east from the truck stop, for instance, they can see well over the bridge that a car can't. A lot of people in cars don't realize the roof of their car is where the driver in a big truck's feet are, same height. So a driver turning left to go east, coming out of the Joyceville truck stop, for instance, he can see over the bridge. He can see the traffic coming at him. Cars would never see till half that distance. Point is, the ramps are plenty long enough, whether you're slowing down or speeding up with heavy weight, and they're ideal. there is an advantage to taking that left turn off Joyceful and coming around and under the bridge to head east. It gives a visual to people heading east that there's a truck curling ahead of them and coming on. It's a heads up for them. Moving down to Highway 32, I wouldn't touch those ramps either. Your proposal there for taking the westbound off ramp under the bridge and then around, you're seriously cutting down the distance to be able to look over that bridge on your right toward Gananoque at that stop sign. Right now, both off and on ramps on the westbound side are long. There's all kinds of room. We're not talking just truck traffic here. This is for cars as well. Same effect when you're going west and you're staying on the 401 and somebody is coming on that westbound lane, you have that visual. There's a vehicle, car, truck, what have you, curling in front of you. It's a heads up. There's somebody coming in to join you on that lane. As far as going east, I don't have any problem. It's the same scenario I used in Joyceful. That hooking effect, the visual coming on, lots of room to get up to speed. I want to skip over to the Highway 2 westbound off-ramp. Eliminate it. Just eliminate it. It's a dangerous off-ramp. Councillor maybe has brought it up several times here. We've talked about it several times. We've been to the ministry. Nothing's really happening. There's no flashing light at the top of that ramp. I don't know if we haven't had a death there, but it's a wonder we haven't. Our emergency or first responders could tell you how many times they get called there for fender benders. Some of these days it's not going to be. I really do, however, having said eliminate the Highway 2 westbound off-ramp, I really do like your proposal. I will call it, I think it's just west of I know it's west of the casino. I think it's 4A and 4B. Visually, quickly, I don't see a lot of difference in them. I like the fact that you can take the 401 westbound and merge off and then take the hook around down to whether it's a roundabout or what have you on what would be an entrance to the parkway. Yes, that one there. I like that. That gives you the opportunity. Which one is that? Number 5, is it?
This is 5. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, that'll be the one I'll prefer then, because that gives you the opportunity to totally eliminate the Highway 2 westbound off-ramp. If you can see the Highway 2 westbound off-ramp in that picture.
Yep.
If you eliminate the ramp, they only need to drive another, 1 kilometer? And the danger is eliminated on Highway 2, totally eliminated. And it brings them right back down to Highway 2 again. I also like the transport effect of that for those that go into businesses in the town of Gananoque. And then the on-ramp, likewise, is on the westbound side, is on the slow lanes. That dangerous, very dangerous ramp that exists there now where you're merging on the fastest lane. That's all right if you're going fast. That's a very dangerous. And the other comment I wanted to make, or ask, I should say, isn't the whole concept of this just to widen the 401 to 3 lanes in each direction?
Well, no, I mean, again, it's the focus is to look at the bridges, like this bridge at Thousand Islands Parkway or Highway 2. It's maybe 60 years old. Offhand, I'm not sure, but typically the lifespan is 75 years.
All right.
So
Well,
that's
my
where
point. Sorry, go ahead.
that's where we're looking at what the bridge needs to be, but planning that, these bridges, again, it'll be there for the next 100 years once it's replaced, or 75
Right.
years after that. So even though the bridge might be replaced, the highway won't be widened yet, potentially. But we want to make sure we know what it would need to look like and that we're designing it
All right.
to the future.
Well, I would hope at some point they're looking at 3 lanes each direction. And case in point, that westbound on-ramp behind the casino where you're merging into the fast lane, you can only imagine the chaos if there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
So I like some of the concepts you have. I'm just weighing in on it on a transportation basis. These trucks need room, and you have Joyceful, Highway 32, and this configuration here in number 5 gives ample room for trucks to slow down and speed up. But better still, it totally eliminates this danger of westbound Highway 2. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have Councillor Lackey who wants to ask a question.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. Just along the same veins as Deputy Mayor, is all this work hopefully going to take into consideration the EDRs and the extra traffic during those situations to make sure there's room for long lines of traffic and get them safely on their way?
I mean, when we look at doing this, we do come up with at least conceptual construction staging plans to replace the bridge, and often that might mean detouring traffic to the EDRs. In terms of assessing the EDRs themselves, not really something as part of this type of study that we would be looking at. If that's kind of what you're asking about.
I would I'll interject. The comment that Councillor Lackey is making is a very fair one. When EDRs, when emergency detours are happening, it really needs to be considered in this construction because we can construct this and make it better than what we think, but it actually creates further challenges with the EDRs. And no disrespect, however long this would be to widen the 401. Right now, we're dealing with 4 lanes, 2 lanes on each side, and we're seeing more and more emergency detours. Technically, the Thousand Islands Parkway is not supposed to be the EDR, and right now, when there is the emergency detour onto Highway 2 at 32 or at the casino, it's pretty much a gong show. And Mallorytown as well, yes. So Mallorytown often gets shut down from Mallorytown to Lansdowne or even further. And with all due respect, the comment that Councillor Lackey has made, it needs to be considered as part of the design because we understand that sometimes it will have to be closed. And when you have significant weather events, and we're seeing more and more extreme weather events, this needs to be considered. Are there any other comments in regards to that? Quickly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just on that EDR, in other municipalities or states or the provinces, there's actually crossover lanes that actually take a roadway and make it 2-way. Is there any consideration or thoughts of province of Ontario looking at something like that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, certainly it's not something we've been considering as part of this project. I'm not sure if Dave or Katie, if you are aware of anything else in other areas like that of the province, but I'm not. I know what you're talking about. I've seen them a lot, certainly in other jurisdictions, but haven't really seen them too much in Ontario.
I don't know if you want me to take this, Katie, or not. Yeah. So I can speak. So I'm David Brake. I'm a senior project manager at the Ministry of Transportation. So what I can offer in that regard is, the ministry really hasn't been looking at sort of those crossovers that sort of remain in place long term in the sense they're available in the median. Unfortunately, through this stretch, this is Katie's study, but even where there's already a concrete median barrier, it's difficult to open up that median barrier and then protect those ends, that concrete. So once you get to an urban cross section, it's difficult to sort of implement median crossovers sort of in those types of cross sections. So the median crossovers I've seen in Quebec to the east of Ottawa, they design those to a much lower standard, and I guess the ministry just isn't willing to design it to those lower standards. So that's why we haven't adopted those sort of permanent median crossovers that to remain in place and available. So that's what I can offer that I know.
Thank you for that. Any other questions in regards to the first half? I know that the second half will be shorter because we've already gone through the specifics of how the EAs work and that sort of thing. So I think we'll have you keep going.
Okay, so yeah, the second half, I'm going to actually turn it over to, I believe Heather Maltbeck will be going through that slide deck.
Okay. I think you have to stop sharing.
Yeah, let me just.
Do I have to?
Okay, I stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it now. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, yeah, I will try to make this quick. There's many slides that we can probably skip as they were the same as Michael's presentation. So the difference on this one is the study from Gananoque to Mallorytown. So this is from 1 kilometer east of Highway 2 at King Street to 2.8 kilometers west of Mallorytown. Just a map of the study area. So we're starting right where the last study ended on the west side, and we're going easterly to Mallorytown, or just west of Mallorytown. The same same project focus. I will skip ahead. And these are essentially the same key study components. Again, looking at the bridges and the future, setting that future footprint of the highway 6 to 8 lanes. So we have, again, the same adjacent projects. You'll just see that instead of having our project on this list, now we have the Kingston to Gananoque project on the list, along with Belleville to Kingston and the Mallorytown to Brockville. And it is the same EA process. So the only difference here you'll see is our PIC was held on October 23rd, but other than that, we are following the same EA process, and we have all of the same environmental investigations and studies as well, with the same ultimate deliverable of that transportation environmental study report. We also have the same problems and opportunities and the same study process. So again, PIC was October 23rd for this one. So when we get into the details of this study, so our long list of alternatives for the Highway 401 through this section, we have that 22.5 meter median the entire way. We don't have the urban cross section in our study. So what we're looking at is similar to Michael's. You're going to look at widening to the outside, widening to, or sorry, we have one to the outside, one to the inside. Hold on a second, I apologize. This is the existing here, yes. So we have 2 to the outside, 1 to the outside, 1 to the inside, and then 2 to the inside. And I think this might have differed a little bit, but we have 2 options that we're showing. If we were to widen 2 lanes to the outside for, let's say, the eastbound lanes, and then 2 lanes to the inside for the westbound lanes, and then the reverse would be option 5. And this would just be in cases where, so this is us moving the center line of the highway, maybe if there are constraints, property constraints on either side, if we needed to try to avoid on either the north or south side of the highway, those are options that could be put into place that would depend on that specific section of 401. And when something that's a little bit different in our section, if you're probably all very familiar with this area, is that there is a split alignment section where the highway separates. That's for about approximately 4 kilometers. That would be from 3 kilometers east to 7 kilometers east of Highway 137. So in this case, it's going to kind of depend on the location. We're going to take a closer look. There is some rock cuts in these areas. So whether or not, again, we're widening 2 lanes to the outside, to the inside, or 1 to the inside and 1 to the outside. So that will be studied in more detail as we progress through the study. We also have culverts that we're looking at as well. We have 7 structural culverts in our study limits. So we're looking at replacing with a bridge, rehabbing and extending, or potentially constructing some retaining walls and doing a rehabilitation. So for our project, we only have 2 interchanges. One of them is Reynolds Road and one of them is Highway 137. So for Reynolds Road, we actually have quite a number of interchange alternatives, but I'm going to kind of go over at a high level just to explain there's a little bit of a mix and match in this one where we take some alternatives on the north side and the south side and kind of pair them up differently. So I'll show you that. I think this should be clear enough. So the first alternative is just maintain the existing and replace the bridge. That's something that we're going to look at. And then the 3 interchange types that I want to flag are the diamond. So we have an existing diamond interchange here at Reynolds Road. You can see that the ramp terminal intersections don't actually line up there. That would be something we'd want to correct, and also putting in the proper radius for the design speed and for the current standards. We have something called a Parkway 2, which you would have seen in Michael's presentation, where we have ramps in 2 of the quadrants. We have these loop ramps and then the off ramps. And then we have something called a Parkway 4, which has the directional ramp in the other 2 quadrants. So we have ramps in all 4 quadrants for that A4. This one eliminates left turns to get onto the highway. So you would be going from south to east and from north to west. So these are the first 4. And then the ones that follow are just going to be, so for alternative 5 and 6, we were just looking at different radii for these loop ramps. So we have a 75 meter and a 90 meter. So we're going to be evaluating, this would be a preferred a radius, but we're going to take a look and see what we'd want to implement there. So from 7 onward, you can see here we have an A2 on the north side and A4 on the south side. We have an A2 on the north side, a diamond on the south side. So that's the kind of thing when I mean we're kind of mixing and matching. So there's really just those 3 main interchange types when Oh, I apologize. 1 second here. Again, yeah, A4, A2, A4 diamond. So you get the idea there. We did have 4 that we are not carrying forward. These all are these B loops. I know that in Michael's presentation, he had one there as well. And the main reason would be typically B loops are not as preferred as an A loop, and also it has a very large impact to the property in the northwest quadrant of the interchange. It's some type of a boat storage. So we would like to not make that impact. So we are not carrying forward those B loops. And then our other interchange is Highway 137. So we have fewer options here. We're again showing one of maintaining the existing interchange and just replacing the bridge. And then we're doing, this is called a trumpet B, is the existing interchange type. So we're looking at this trumpet B with the larger radii, which meets design standards. We also were looking at a trumpet B with the larger radii and a westbound basket weave. So because these 2 interchanges are so close, 137 and Reynolds Road, we're going to be evaluating the traffic, but if we were to have an issue with the weaving between one and the other, putting a basket weave making our northbound to west traffic go either over or under the off ramp at Reynolds, because you would typically not be expecting someone from 137 from the south going west to get off at Reynolds, given that they can access Reynolds from the other, was it Thousand Islands Parkway? We don't know if we would need to implement this. We're not sure the traffic would support that, but that's something that we are going to carry forward to look at in closer detail, and that could be implemented with more than one of the interchange options. And then the other, we've also showed a trumpet A, which is flipping it, kind of a mirror image with the same radius as the existing, and then we have one with the a tighter loop ramp here. Now this is obviously, it looks like you can kind of already see that we'll have some environmental impacts, but that's also something that we are going to consider as part of our evaluation. And this benefit of this would be if the movement from westbound to southbound was heavier, it might be beneficial to not be going into a loop ramp and coming into that directional ramp instead of coming into a loop ramp, which is the existing configuration, something else that we will review. And the one that we're not carrying forward, we were trying to think of some ideas of what we could do here. And this is basically kind of creating a stop control coming off the highway. So let's say you get off here, you stop at a traffic light or a stop sign, turn left to go south. So it removes that freeway to freeway interchange. And we felt that that was not preferred. So that one will not be carried forward. We have 2 other crossing roads that we looked at as well. This is LaRue Mills Road. So how we would be replacing LaRue Mills Road. We looked at replacing it on the existing alignment. That would mean closing the road and replacing the bridge. And then we looked at 2 different options. We have 2 for the west. So this one here, number 2. And then we also have number 4. Number 2, you'll see though, we're trying to straighten out the crossing. So it would require a shorter bridge, but it would cause a realignment of LaRue Mills Road. So we'll be taking a look at that to see if that has benefits over just replacing it directly to the west and keeping that skewed alignment of that bridge crossing the highway. And the same happens for the east side. We're taking a look at straightening that out and then replacing it directly beside. And these options would keep that road open during construction. And then Cliff Road is the last one, a little bit more straightforward here. So again, we're showing replace on existing alignment, which would require the closure of Cliff Road slightly to the west and then slightly to the east, which Cliff Road would remain open during that bridge construction. So again, we attended PIC number 1 on October 23rd. We had 74 stakeholders sign in. Our count was over 80 though of people who attended. The need for the wildlife crossing and directional fencing for reducing roadkill, improving road safety, and supporting biodiversity through maintaining ecology connectivity was one of the main comments. There were also concerns for construction-related traffic impacts and disruption to EMS services, concerns about potential impacts on groundwater and nearby watercourses, and then also property acquisition. We did receive a lot of positive feedback about the consultation process and our team's knowledge, but there was some people wanted further clarity on the evaluation criteria and some of the decision-making process. The last one, stakeholders expressed interest in potential property impacts associated with the 6 and 8 lane footprints of the 401 and the anticipated timelines of construction. Same thing as Michael's for the next steps and key dates. So yeah, that second PIC likely in the fall of 2026. And I hope I went through that quick enough. If I went too fast and you want me to go back to anything, please let me know. But can we open that up to questions?
Yep. I have Councillor Maybe and then Deputy Mayor Fody so far.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. First question is the existing 22.5 median on this section, is it wider than 22.5 in our existing footprint?
No, it's approximately that in the
Approximately
existing. Yeah.
So if we can maintain 22.5, then there's no barrier wall put in, correct?
That's right. That would also be the case if we went to this 15.5 meter median. This is if you did one lane to the inside and one to the outside. There may need to be some type of median protection system, but that could be like a steel beam guide rail or maybe not cable guide rail, but it would be something that would not be a concrete barrier wall. So it would not be that solid wall.
Yeah, which also helps with the wildlife transporting across. So preferred is 22.5 to maintain that.
Okay.
Just reading my notes, sorry. So Reynolds Road design, one complaint I have about Reynolds Road is heading east and coming off 401. And when you want to turn left to go north to Lansdowne, the bridge in a car is obstructed view. And there were no other alternatives offered that eliminated that rampway from being lower than the bridge deck itself.
And so this is the vertical curve, the crest curve on Reynolds Road itself? That's what you're speaking of? Like when you're on Reynolds Road, they can't see the ramp terminal?
No, when you're coming off 401
from
heading east, the rampway right there at the top, right there where your cursor is, that particular location, when you're sitting in a vehicle, in a car, particularly, seeing over the bridge is very difficult and obscured, as well as the guardrail that comes down the side of that embankment is also hindering your viewpoint. So, and as I said, there was nothing that I seen as a possible change to that. So I think that's a very serious thing to look at to try to minimize any damage there.
So can I just address that? So all of the options would address that issue. That would be a vertical curve of Reynolds Road. So we'll be putting in a longer bridge to span that future 6 to 8 lanes. And we'll be bringing Reynolds Road up and putting in a standard vertical curve over the highway to allow proper sight lines.
Yeah, the only disadvantage to that is to the south, Reynolds Road, there's houses there that have driveways that enter onto that curve of Reynolds Road, and how high would you raise that roadway and to the existing Reynolds Road area grade wise and the driveways to those particular residents.
Right. Yeah, we'd have to take a look at that. I just don't know at this time how high it would be going up.
Yep. And Highway 137, either option 2 or 5 is what I listed as a suitable option. And actually, after looking at it, kind of thinking that maybe 5 might be the better option, you know, in this, number 5 there.
Yeah. And one of the benefits of number 5 is it's also pulling the interchange kind of farther from Reynolds Road as well.
And then LaRue Mills, I had number 4, which actually moved it to the west, right beside the existing. And then Cliff Road number 2, which was also a west. And some of the other questions I had were actually answered in the first presentation. So thank you very much.
Great.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Heather Cliff Road, don't touch it. It's virtually a residential road that has no off ramps. There's no need to change the trajectory of the bridge. It's
so
basically it's a no-brainer. Just leave it.
Well, we
It's
need
not-
to
it-
replace the bridge because it's and reaching the end of its service life. So the bridge
Sure.
does need to be replaced.
Well,
So
that's fine. Replace the bridge, but don't start putting, kinks in it, if you will, on either side. There's no need for it.
okay. Yeah.
Move
So
forward.
assuming we can close Cliff Road during construction, yeah, that would be a good option, is to replace it in the,
You
in
you
the
could.
location that it's
I
at.
mean, it's going to interfere with a few locals, but they have options to get an Aquay and Lansdowne.
Yeah.
For a while. I know it's not going to be closed for years on end. Move east to Lansdowne interchange. Same as I
Ren-
made reference to before.
Sorry, which is that Reynolds?
Reynolds
Lansdowne.
Road?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The same references I made to Michael in the transportation industry. Don't touch those ramps. They have ample off ramp slow down times going either direction. The same with picking it back up. The worst thing you can do in the transportation industry is put my glasses on here, number 3 and 4. The minute you start putting so-called curvatures in the roundabouts, you're going to get rollovers. The fire chief is sitting right opposite me over here. I could ask him how many rollovers he attends on these type of ramps, and they'd be tenfold to a straight ramp with no curves in it. And that's it's the nature of the beast. You get poorly trained drivers driving commercial trucks, or they're not familiar with the area and they're going into the curve too fast. It's too late. The thing's on its side. Our firefighters are volunteers. They're paid for their hours. They got better things to do Christmas Eve than attend a rollover truck. So stay away from these curves. They're just a recipe for disaster. Highway 137. I like what Councillor Maybe had stated, number 5. It pulls the westbound traffic speed up zone back further east, and it gives the off-ramp to the 137 going west lots of time to see you up ahead what they do. I don't know how many trucks and cars I've seen slam on a brake. Those that drive by their GPS, and it's both cars and trucks, they're in the left lane, and then they realize, oh God, there's my off-ramp right there. Somebody's going to get cut off. I know our fire departments have attended these accidents. I really like that design there. It just mitigates potential disaster. And I don't have any comment on LaRue Mills. It's fine. Just replace the bridge and move on. Thank you. I do want to make one comment. Is your firm, when you're doing all these changes, are you responsible for the guardrails on the bridge and the guardrail abutments coming up into them?
Like in a preliminary design, we don't typically have our drawings placed too much. Like we don't really focus on placing that guide rail. In a future detailed design phase, they would do the calculations of where the guide rail is going to go and include that in those detailed design drawings. That they would be looking at the slopes, like what needs to be protected, the bridge abutments, the embankments.
Okay, if you'll allow me a little humor, sarcasm, Councillor Maybe had referred to the eastbound off-ramp at Reynolds Road. If you were sitting in a car before you stuck that bumper rail there, you wouldn't have put it there. It's that simple. That's my sarcasm and humor. Put a car there and put somebody in it and say, is this okay? And they would say no, and you move it back in 2 or 3 foot increments. It's okay it's necessary to put those bumper rails there if there's a serious drop off into water or, what have you. But in that particular instance, it could have been set back 4 more feet, and it would have allowed a site visit to at least, with your eyes, to at least the bridge. And as Councillor Maybe alluded to, people are putting their bumpers right out almost into the traffic lane to be able to see. The other point I want to make, and you can take this to whomever, likely MTO, those that drive commercial trucks will tell you every sign at the end of an off-ramp just happens to be exactly where they're trying to see. They're at 6 and 8 foot heights. When you're sitting in a commercial truck and looking either way, there's signs here, there's signs there. So you wonder why some of these trucks are getting their front bumpers 2 feet out into the edge of the road. It's the only way they can see. So somebody has to take the bull by the horns on these signages. And I know where it happens in a lot of cases. Somebody at MTO comes up, they whip around the edge of the guardrail in a pickup truck, they drop the tailgate, get up there with a hammer a pipe in the ground, and let's put it right here. Let's put some measurements behind this and a little methodology rather than the ease of how it went in the ground, and keep them well away from the sight lines at the end of the ramps. Thank you.
Any other comments in regards to the proposals for Gananoque to Maurytown? I have no hands up. Is there anybody in the audience that has anything to contribute? Or online? I have no hands up. Okay. I think, and that's the end of the presentation, I'm assuming, between Michael and Heather and the rest of the crew that were here this evening. Thank you very much. I know it's a lot of information, but it's important, and it sounds like you had good turnout in both in Gananoque and Lansdowne. So the second round of consultation will be hopefully that much more robust. But hopefully you heard some of the concerns here this evening that you'll be able to add to the list of comments before final drafts start coming forward. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, so it is 7:15. I've got 7.2439 Thousand Islands Parkway. It's another briefing. Jason Sands with the Boulevard Group will be presenting to discuss the zoning bylaw amendment application D14 2025-010 for the lands at 439 Thousand Islands Parkway. So this is a further briefing to the previous presentation at Committee of the Whole. So please come forward. I believe, Lindsay, you're sharing the slides? Okay. So we'll ask you to give the presentation and then we'll have further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Jason Sands. I'm here on behalf of the owner at 439 Thousand Islands Parkway. I'm a registered professional planner in the province of Ontario, as well as a member of the Canadian Institute of Planning. I'm joined tonight by Michael Preston, who's been on this file longer than I have. So he is also here in the ability and in position to answer any questions that may be more directed to the history of the file than I. Next slide, please. So as you're aware, the subject property was submitted, or there was an application for zoning bylaw amendment application submitted to change the zoning from tourist commercial to shoreline residential zone to facilitate and recognize a single family dwelling on the subject property. It's already under construction, so many of you are familiar with what it looks like on site, and it was applied for and permitted and issued permits through that CT zone. Next slide, please. So some of the history, again, many of you have seen this around this table previously, and Mr. Preston, again, has got better history than I, and brought onto the file a handful of months ago to support the zoning change. But I understand it was used for a fishing camp in its history, or originally. So that's where that tourist commercial zoning came from as it relates to that property. Many of the properties in the area immediately adjacent on that shoreline are residential uses in the rural designation of your official plan. So this one is a bit of a unique parcel in the fact that it did have that commercial zoning. And while the owner always intended or had originally envisioned it to be constructed as a residential use, there was belief that they could avoid the zoning bylaw amendment approval process to allow for development to be initiated like you see on site today. So there was a permit issued to allow for it to be initiated under the CT zoning. And then since that time, there's been challenges that have ultimately led to cost overruns, for example, fire code construction, building code compliance as it relates to fire separations internal to the building. So much of essentially you have shells of a building that are under construction to date, and the interiors are sitting undeveloped or vacated because they're proposing to rezone it to allow for a change in OBC compliance to a lesser level, if you will, residential code requirement as opposed to commercial code requirement. And that's essentially why we're rezoning the subject property. Next slide, please. So I understand on October 6th, Committee of the Whole had discussed this property, this file for rezoning. There was a presentation made by my colleague, Mr. Preston, virtually, so not in person. And I understand that there were some questions of committee to staff as well as the proponent as it relates to some of the comments specifically in response and the history of the file, et cetera. I've tried to hit a couple of the comments. I wasn't here presently in person, as you know. I was able to watch it online and attempt to summarize. The first comment and question that I heard that was fairly significant was related to tax revenues and the difference that you may see between a commercial rate versus a residential rate. Of course, I'm not here to dispute the fact that you probably do have a difference in tax rates and revenues generated on different classes of use. That being said, under the Planning Act and here in the province of Ontario, we don't look at necessarily whether or not taxes or fiduciary changes will have an implication on whether or not it represents good land use planning or is in public interest. So for that reason, I'm here to hope to answer any questions you may have on that, but also stray you into the direction of looking at the policies from the province down, and that'll run through the slide deck to understand where and what we're considering when looking at zoning bylaw amendment applications for similar types of applications like this. All that being said, we have experience in rural municipalities and understand that things like development charges often are also considered, or parkland levies, for example, are maybe considered or thought of from a council when considering zoning or planning act applications. And again, as much as they may be a consideration of such, it's not what we should be hanging our hat, if you will, on a decision as it relates to a planning act application. The question also was raised about why, or essentially why was this application not submitted before the actual construction has gone on site? And as you know, there's pictures in the slide deck. You've driven by the property, I'm sure, several times. It's already under construction. As mentioned, there was originally that belief that the owner could build this project, build it out in compliance with the CT tourist commercial zone, allow them to get in the ground and get the buildings up, and skirt, if you will, some of the requirements associated with a zoning bylaw amendment application. So the cost of doing a zoning amendment, the cost of doing archaeological studies, any of those other planning applications were believed to be avoided at the time to allow for this to proceed. Long story, as you can imagine, we're here rezoning it, so it didn't exactly go as planned years ago. The size and number of the buildings may not be appropriate for residential use. There are 3 buildings proposed on the property. One's a single-family dwelling, and 2 are accessory structures, like detached garages, if you will, with space above for habitable space. No kitchens, no additional units, not 3 units, not a commercial tourist establishment use, but a residential use with accessory buildings. They don't necessarily look like a conventional residential building in the sense of a detached garage. These have flat roofs and look more peculiar, if you will. However, they are in fact being utilized for residential use and those supporting it. The other thing I want to mention to you with respect to the zoning is the shoreline residential zone is applicable to not only this property, or proposed to be applicable to this property, it is also associated with the neighboring properties, and residential uses are in keeping in that general area. Next slide, please. So from an aerial image perspective, you can see the building's under construction. From a property area point of view, 1.4 hectares, fairly large property, nearly 3.5 acres, single-family dwelling being constructed, residential essentially to the east, to the west, across the road on the north side, and the park or the water to the south. Slide, please. Site plan. Again, you've seen this. I'm not going to dwell on it, but the photo on the right is a recent shot of the accessory buildings with the detached or with the single detached dwelling furthest in the photo. Slide, please. I don't want to spend a lot of time. Planning Act very high level when we're talking about a zoning amendment on Ontario. That being said, it does set the provincial interests and dictates how we come from a hierarchy of looking at what's appropriate from land use planning. We've essentially looked at that, and in our opinion, it's in the provincial interest. Next slide, please. Provincial planning statement updated in 2024 contains a bit more refined or on-the-ground policy that we look at. Things like housing, rural areas, and what can be accommodated on private services versus urban, full services, natural heritage policies, natural hazard policies. All of those, in short, have been reviewed, addressed, and in our opinion are consistent. The proposed development is consistent with. Slide, please. United Counties of Leeds and Grenville official plan contains policy set that are, again, to the greater detail related to those similar policies at the PPS level. I should have mentioned this on the onset. I apologize. We authored a planning justification report. If you haven't seen it, it was submitted in support of the zoning bylaw amendment application. That's about 25, 30 pages long, and it goes through all the policies that we saw applicable in these documents, for example, the county's official plan, et cetera, and spoke to the appropriateness of each of those policies as it relates to the proposed development. Next slide, please. At the most local level, the official plan, again, rural designated, you can see the lands all around it are also in the same designation. I would feel more challenged, if you will, by presenting an application to go the opposite way. If we were here proposing to rezone this property to a tourist commercial zone, I think we'd have a harder justification or rationale from a policy point of view, as opposed to what we're proposing to do through this application. The 30-meter setback off the water is all compliant as it relates to the on-site development. Next slide, please. Some of the greater policy tests, one of the things as it relates to a special policy area in your official plan, speaking to the water or to the lands on the north side of the St. Lawrence River in this area. And we've reviewed that with respect to the residential policies for 1 hectare minimum lot area requirement for a single detached dwelling. So we're not looking for a density that's increased as it relates to that area, and it's in keeping with the special policy area and the policies of your official plan. Next slide, please. So this is a commitment slide. I didn't know what to title it essentially. So we wanted to make sure that you have the commitment, that you as a council have the commitment of the current property owner that they are envisioning to utilize this as a residential land use. That is what the intent of this application is. That is what they intend to do with the property into the future. And they are acknowledging of the limitations that might instill into the future. So from that perspective, we understand that building permits have already been issued for the dwelling or for the dwelling. But there would need to be a change in those permits. And through that change, there would also be then the ability to withhold an occupancy permit on the residential use. The owner is willing to sign an affidavit to confirm the intent of their use of the property as residential and not commercial, to go along with and to be withheld prior to the issuance of any occupancy permit related to that. Another thing I'd like to point out is site plan controls applicable on the property. As you may or may not know, there's already an agreement on the property, and it would require an amending agreement through a site plan modification application. The site plan modification application can have warning clauses and acknowledgement clauses that we see appropriate to be incorporated to ensure that use is limited from residential from any sort of commercial type use that there may be a concern of at council level. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in conclusion, we are here before you seeking your approval as it relates to a zoning change from tourist commercial to a shoreline residential zone, site specific, to allow for and recognize the continued development of a single family dwelling on the property. And we also acknowledge that there are, or willing to understand how limitations may be put on title, for example, to ensure that is known both by the current owner and any future owner who purchases the property. In our assessment, which I recognize I flew through, but in the interest of time, wanted to outline the applicable policy tests and sets up to this property when considering such a change in zoning. And in our opinion, it represents good planning, adheres to those policies, and is in the public interest. I think that's the last slide. I'm happy to answer any questions from a planning perspective. As previously mentioned, again, Mr. Preston can probably answer the questions that may be more directed to the history, but together I think we can answer anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from council? So I have Councillor Lackey, and that's the only hand up for now.
Thank you. And through you, your worship, I'd like to ask a question I kind of know the answer to. You talked about the owner signing an affidavit stating what they will do or what they won't do. Did or did they not sign an affidavit after purchasing the property to not tear the original dwelling down because of a fuel or a furnace oil leak in the basement? So was there a failure to comply with an affidavit already?
Through your worship, that's a question I'm not confident in answering, council. I'll address that to my colleague, but I wasn't on a file at that time.
Good evening. There was no affidavit that was signed originally about that building. We received a demo permit. There was a tank in the basement that we're aware of that was empty, and the issues that occurred because of the fuel leak were already in the ground. I understand the building was taken down, and then it rained all weekend after it was taken down, and subsequently the issue became apparent. But it was our understanding and the contractor's understanding that it was an empty tank. And I think the chief building inspector had already been there. They had discussed it. There was no affidavit ever signed. They had a demo permit for that building.
My apologies. Just another follow-up, if I may. Was it a conditional permit?
Not that I'm aware of. I could get you that answer, but
Okay.
not that I'm aware of.
We'll have the planner answer that.
Through you for clarification, and it's my understanding that there were conditions on the building permit. It wasn't a conditional permit under the Building Code Act, but there were conditions on the demolition permit that spoke to that. But that is a separate matter from the zoning application.
Thank you for the clarification.
Further comments or questions in regards to the presentation? I have no hands up. So we thank you, gentlemen, for coming back and providing further context. And we'll move forward with our agenda this evening. I'm just looking at it, 7:31. So we have a public meeting. Does everybody need a break, a comfort break, or can you get through the next one? Yes, okay. I figured as much. I just wanted to double check that nobody was floating teeth at this point. So we'll go into the public meeting, moved by Councillor Antoine Hartley, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the public meeting be called to order at 7:31. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it is carried. Moving on to 8.1 zoning bylaw amendment D14 2025-009 390 Back Street. And the report is provided for information purposes only. I'm just going to read the introduction. Personal information collected at this public hearing is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter, I should say. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments are collected and form part of the minutes, which are available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning. The purpose of public meetings is to present applications in a public forum. Following presentations by applicant or staff, council members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comments and questions. When you speak, please provide your name, address for the recording in the minutes. All comments should be directed to myself, the chair of the meeting. The applicant will be provided the opportunity to address public questions once all members of the public have made their submissions. Following council's decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a specified person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of Township Leeds and the Thousand Islands to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but specified person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township before the bylaw is passed, the specified person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. So, sorry, I had to read that as quickly as I could. So we're back to 390 Back Street. Madam Planner? Oh, we're going right to the planner. My apologies. I'm craning my neck. So we have Holly Newitt on to speak to this matter. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will share my screen and then double check that everyone can hear me and see the presentation, no problem. Thumbs up, yes. Great. Thank you, and through the chair, my name is Holly Newitt, and I am a planner with FOTEM Planning and Design. I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant to speak to an application for zoning bylaw amendment for the property located at 390 Back Street. The site is located on the north side of Back Street, between Lyndhurst Road and Highway 15. The site has a total lot area of approximately 20.5 hectares and approximately 198 meters of frontage on Back Street. The property is currently farmed with wooded areas to the north and a home with private driveway along the road to the south. The surrounding area is predominantly rural with a mix of residential and agricultural uses. Rural industrial uses are also located north of the site in the form of an aggregate extraction operation. The intent of the application is to permit a seasonal event venue on the site. The existing entrance to the site will be used and branched to the west for event traffic. Parking is proposed along the driveway as well as at the north of the site for vendors and to provide accessible parking spaces. A seasonal event tent is proposed, serviced by portable washroom facilities and mobile catering services. No permanent buildings or structures are proposed as part of this application at this time. Extensive landscaping is proposed. The orange on the screen here represents tree planting, which is being pursued in collaboration with the Conservation Authority in order to expand the wooded area on the site. The green hatch on this plan reflects intentions to establish a wildflower field in the balance of the unutilized portions of the backfield. Apart from the driveway, no change is proposed to the lower agricultural field, nor to the existing rural residential home. The site is designated rural lands in the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville official plan. This designation permits a mix of uses, including residential and commercial, that are compatible with rural character and can be sustained by rural service levels. The site is designated rural in the Township of Leeds and Thousand Islands official plan. Schedule A3 of the official plan, shown to the right of the screen, also shows the woodlands on the north as being identified as woodlands within the natural heritage system. The rural designation permits residential and commercial uses with consideration for compatibility, built forms, and the general character of the area. The official plan speaks to fostering growth and diversification of the rural economy. No development is proposed within the boundaries of the woodlands designation. The property is currently zoned rural or RU zone in the Township of Leeds and Thousand Islands zoning bylaw. The RU zone permits single detached dwellings as well as a range of complementary non-residential uses. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment seeks to establish a site-specific permission to permit and define a seasonal event venue on the site. As the use is not contemplated in the zoning bylaw as of right, the following definition of a seasonal event venue is proposed, being a seasonal event venue shall mean a commercial use that hosts events such as, but not limited to, weddings between the months of April and October and may include associated accessory buildings or structures. The zoning bylaw amendment application was submitted with a number of supporting studies and reports to address technical aspects of the proposal, including a noise impact study and a traffic study. All of these studies are currently under review by the township, and third-party peer reviewers have been retained to provide professional technical review of both the noise and traffic studies. In summary, the proposal seeks to permit a seasonal event venue on the property that will include extensive landscaping and tree planting initiatives. The proposed use is compatible with surrounding rural uses and can be sufficiently serviced by existing rural infrastructure as supported through detailed technical review. The proposal has regard for the Planning Act, is consistent with the provincial planning statement, and conforms with the county and township official plans. The proposed amendment complies with the intentions of the township zoning bylaw. In all, it is my professional planning opinion that the proposed represents good land use planning. Thank you for your time, and I am now happy to take any questions from members of the public or members of council.
Okay. So I'm going to go to our planner, Lindsay, and then I will take questions from council and then the public.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Notice of this public meeting has been provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and that included mailouts to all owners of property located within 120 meters of the subject site, as well as all public bodies being notified in accordance with the Planning Act, and signage was posted at the subject property as well. To date, staff have received one piece of correspondence that I believe has been circulated to members of Committee of the Whole this evening, and the public correspondence will be addressed through a future comprehensive report. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions by council members? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. First of all, it's kind of a surprise and a pleasure to have somebody put an application for us adding greenery to the township. So that's a plus. My first question was, when I read this, the portable washrooms, do they address the needs of disabilities? Because we have already been confronted with these on a number of properties in our township of what needs to happen if you're dealing with the public. This application is dealing with the public.
So we'll ask the planner to address that, or I believe the applicant is actually here in the gallery as well. So actually, I'll wait till we'll get all the questions first, and then we'll have them come to the podium at that point. So first question is about washrooms and suitability. Okay, go ahead, Councillor. Oh, you have more? Sorry.
Just one more.
Okay.
The flowers, they're wildflowers just for visual purposes only. It's not a cut and sale. The reason I asked that, there is such a venue north of Perth that's hugely popular, where people will pull into a very similar setup and buy cut wildflowers from this type of setup.
So the second question.
Maybe I planted a seed. Maybe, I don't know. But I was just curious. I mean.
Okay, we have Councillor Maybe. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. The first one is the capacity limit. Is there one for this facility? I know that the parking indicated has so many vehicles, but is there actually a capacity limit? And if this continues to go well, will there be fixed structures possibly coming in our future?
Okay. Any other questions from council? I have no other hands up. So if you'd like to come to the podium to address some of those questions, we have the applicant Holly here in chambers.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us here tonight. My name is Chantal Valkenborg, and I'm the founder and owner of CC Weddings and Events, and this is the next stage of my business. So accessible washrooms, yes. So the portable washroom trailer would have an accessible unit. Each of the units would be individual, and we need one unit per 25 guests. So we would be taking that into account. I've already working with a local business to get a quote for that as well, just to plan ahead if this gets approved. So yes, definitely taking that into account. For capacity, in reference to that, we're aiming to stay around 120 guests for the weddings. In my experience, I've been doing this since 2018. That's generally like the average number. And personally, I don't want more people than that. If we can keep it around that, that's so that is the capacity that we're staying around with the washroom trailer and the tent capacity, taking into account dance floor, bar, buffet tables, that kind of stuff, spacing wise. The wildflower fields are really for aesthetic background. However, we might let couples pick some flowers for their bouquets if they would like, but it wasn't really going to be an agricultural tourism piece. However, I have seen a lot of that around the area. So yeah. And then future fixed structures, at this time that is not the plan. However, I can understand that question. I don't know the answer right now. Yeah, so that, yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Holly.
Through the chair, I'll just clarify for council's benefit that should any structures be pursued in the future, the application will be subject to a site plan control application. So amendment to the site plan would be required, and any buildings would need to prove conformity with the building code.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I'm looking for any from the gallery or from the public online. Okay. I think that's everything. Oh, Deputy Mayor Fody, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just an afterthought question. If this application is approved, when are you looking to set up business?
As soon as possible. I would like to be booking, and if possible, obviously working with different construction companies and putting together a timeline, but I'd be like looking to book for the 2027 wedding season.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so no other questions, no other hands up. So I will put the motion from Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Antoine Hartley, that the public meeting be closed. All in favor? All opposed? And it is carried. So with that, I believe we'll take a 10-minute break, just to to have a comfort break, and then we'll resume at 7:55. That's used to not going all day long.
Okay. I better stay
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Okay, so we are at staff reports. Number 9, number 10, preliminary 2026 budget considerations. So these information reports for 10.1 and 10.2, so Partnership for Economic Enhancement Revitalization Peer Working Group Update. They're both provided for information only, but obviously they're on the floor and up for discussion. So we'll go with 10.1, the preliminary 2026 budget considerations. Are there any questions in regards to this report? Well, just to give a little bit of preamble, things have changed somewhat, but not really. With the strong mayor powers, there's some obligations that I have that I'm supposed to be more involved. Shock, I was always involved. I always saw the draft budget before it came out, and made some comments in regards to what I thought may or may not come forward and to be considered and and framed in. So other mayors have created their own budgets or have gone much further down that rabbit hole than maybe I have. The staff here have created the budget with some questions and comments that I have made. We have gotten some good news recently with some OMPF funding that has increased. There's some ways of looking at the OPP billing, which is helpful because we needed some clarification. Thank you to our MPP, Steve Clark, who was able to answer our questions very quickly. But also understanding financial pressures that our residents deal with every single day. So I know that our conversations that we've had over the last week, sort of combing through things, there's been some other pressures like through fire and the calls that we've seen over the year. And we're handling things quite well here. And I do believe that as a municipality, compared to some of my colleagues that I sit with at both County Council and Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, we're in a very fortunate position within our own municipality in that we've managed well without having massive increases. But the budget considerations that were put in front of you here today were to help not only you as council members, but the public understand what are the things that are pressing, are giving us the guardrails that we have to try to keep within. So if there are any specific questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So Councillor maybe, and then Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I have three. So the first one is the insurance overall has doubled since 2020. Do we see that changing in the future, or are we on that steep slope for it to continue?
Through you, Mayor. Starting with 2025, it seems like we've kind of reached a crest on insurance increases. So our actual insurance percentage increase for 2025 was about 5%. And I'm expecting a similar 5% this year as well, based on we're currently in the renewal application phase right now, but based on my treasurer's group and what people are reporting so far, it seems to be ranging from 4 to 6%. So, I mean, take that for what it is. It's not the double-digit increases that we experienced for about 5 to 6 years. So, in that sense, it is better.
That's a positive. And second one is the Ontario Community Infrastructure for 2023 was $414 and change, and 26,279. So $150 or $150,000 difference. What attributes to that?
Through you, Mayor. So the OCIF is formula-based funding. A couple years ago, they changed the formula in the sense that they use current value assessments in partnership with asset management plans. So this year, when they brought in this new way of doing it, they capped the overall decrease each year at 15%, which is what we had experienced the last couple years. For 2026, they've amended that to cap the potential decrease at 10%, which again is what we saw. Speaking for other municipalities as well, everyone in my treasurer's group, this is a hot topic. All of us seem to have got hit with the 10% increase. Maybe the person who got the increase is just staying very quiet because the rest of us all got decreases. It is the same pot. The overall pot hasn't decreased by the province. So it's just being reallocated around. But unfortunately, we've been on that end of it.
And just as a follow-up, there's no way of finding out why it's changed that much, or whether there's any future issues?
It's based on the current value assessment of capital replacement, and it's tied to that. So that all ties into our asset management plans. So there's a back end report that we complete every year for them, and then based on that, that's how they decide to allocate it out.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one is any information on the impact when they're possibly going to chime into our tax base?
Through you, Mayor, respectfully, no update on that.
Have to ask the question. But yeah. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, this question is to you. Could you repeat what you said a moment ago about the strong mayor powers?
So as per the municipal act, and I'll be quite honest, I don't, as I said before here at this table, the province has expectations as far as the mayor being more involved in directing how the budget process goes. I told staff very clearly, we aren't deviating from how we've always done it, which is the staff puts together the budget. I have always taken a look at the draft before it comes to council. And so the only difference this year is that I sat down with you last week. We kind of went through things a little bit more finer. We got some clarification on some funding announcements, which we weren't clear on. But all in all, I have the ability under strong mayor powers to basically say, I only want a 4% budget or a 2% budget, or I want this cut as a strong mayor. I don't believe that's a decision that is of my making. I believe that is why we sit here together. So, but under, and explain this to me, Madam Clerk, and this is why I don't know what strong mayor powers are, because I don't believe in them in general. I believe that after we pass the budget that I have to sign something stating that this is my budget, which it's not. But anyways, would that be fair?
Technically, yes. So through the new legislation, the budget will be proposed as the mayor's budget instead of how we are used to it. So that's how it will be proposed. Technically, the mayor has to February 1st to propose the budget. And then after that time, it would be the regular process. So to kind of circumvent us waiting until February 1st to be able to propose the budget, we're working collaboratively, and it will be effectively called the mayor's budget.
That's the only difference. But as I said, staff put together the budget. I have not touched it, and I have not directed them one way or the other as to what they should cut or not cut.
Okay, I'm just going to interlude here with a question to the clerk. This new legislation, can I guess who enacted it? This a Doug Ford move? I don't recall Steve Clark reaching out to us as constituent low-level politicians and getting our feedback on this. No different than when Steve Clark stood up in the legislature last week, the minute the vote was called to support eliminating speed cameras. Did he reach out and talk to us? Like, I'll say it right here on camera. The Doug Ford government is starting to look a lot like a dictatorship, not a democracy. The reason I mentioned, I wasn't quite sure what exactly you said, Your Worship, about the strong mayor powers. And thank you for not reaching for that low-hanging apple. It didn't work for Adam and Eve. It won't work for you, because the trust factor will be gone. We have that trust around here in you now. But the fact that Doug Ford has decided in his infinite wisdom that the mayor is going to call the budget and the rest of us will just nod and clap like puppets, not so. It'll fracture every council that plays that game. And I can see why he called for an early election, because these are the games he had in his playbook. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. But we're not here to discuss Doug Ford tonight. We just bow and clap.
So
thank you.
So one of the things that I want to make very clear, as I already have, this is not my budget. It will be signed off by me, but it is council's budget, as it always has. However, to your point, I may not always be in this seat. And that is what the public needs to be very aware of. And that depending on who it is that sits, who is elected to be mayor, that if those strong mayor powers remain, different people will treat it differently. So that's what I will say. Follow up?
Thank you, Your Worship. Are we allowed to invite Steve Clark for a meeting and chat with us and ask questions?
I know that he will gladly take any sort of calls from any of the members of council. I know he's been very receptive.
That's not what I said. Is he going to sit here in public and answer questions from us?
If you wanted to request that he come here as a delegation to talk about strong mayor powers, he has the right, you can invite him
Or the direction his government's going?
to talk about the government in general. I would assume he would be willing to do that. What we could do is we could ask him. Now, the only thing I will say is that the House is sitting right now. He has break week next week, which is obviously too late to set him up for that. But perhaps depending on how long the House is not sitting, he might be able to come to one of our meetings in January or February.
I thought it was ironic you used the words a minute ago to set it up. That's exactly what's being done with us. Thank you.
Any further comments in regards to the 2026 budget considerations? Okay. 10.2, which is Partnership for Economic Enhancement and Revitalization, the peer working group. Again, that was provided for information purposes. Any questions? Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I first would like to say thank you very much. It's nice to see this report come. I've been kind of badgering about it for a while now. And I'm just questioning, I have a few questions, I guess. We were provided with a survey, the results of a survey here that I kind of would like to know what the purpose of it was. Like a survey to me is you're gathering data that's going to drive how you go forward, digging deeper. The very first question is communication between the township and community groups is taking place. That's extremely broad. So I'm not quite sure what the point was of that. I think what I'm seeing is if you look farther into that survey, you see questions that actually get to where people are allowed to just put in their own thoughts. So I'd also like to point out that only 6 of the 9 possible peer group members were able to answer this for whatever reason. And if you want the real data of a survey, I think you need to go into the end, which is where people responded. The question was, I would be interested in the peer working group being able to, and the very first response was, feel confident our ideas, thoughts, and concerns are carried forward and heard, understood by the decision-making teams. Consult with the township about decisions that affect our own communities. And be better able to be used as a resource by the township and to be more involved in contributing to ideas made about the villages. What I've been hearing and consistently hearing is they don't feel like they're being heard, and they're tired of just being the flower people, and they have ideas and they have concerns, and they would like to have an opportunity to bring those to council. Now, the unfortunate part is there is no actual representative. Tracy does a wonderful job, but there's nobody to bring anything to the team, and they feel like nothing is heard at council. So those are concerns they have. And you go back to January, their minutes, they also express that in their minutes. It comes up repeatedly. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be some follow-up, as in maybe a little bit of a change in how those concerns are addressed, because they don't, I go back to January minutes of the meeting. It said the members also felt that the meetings were ineffective for receiving information and follow-up from the other departments. Some group members wondered if it would be better to bring things forward to a delegation to council to make their voices heard. They also had questions about how the staff on this committee doesn't have a direct post-meeting update in person with senior management team. So those concerns, I know continue, and they definitely are there, especially when it comes to things like the special events permits. These people are the people that are doing the events in our communities, and the frustration level sometimes, and when they don't feel heard, we need to, I think, address that.
Okay, so I would say that there's opportunity for conversation with both the clerk and the manager to talk about next steps and how we might address some of those challenges. It used to be a committee of council. That's how the structure was previous, but for lots of different reasons that changed. However, I think we can have a discussion outside of council and bring forward back potentially a better way forward. It's just a matter of having some discussion offline. Okay. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I find it rather confusing. These peer groups represent the best of each of our hamlets and communities. That podium's been there since before I sat at the seat. They could have made it an application to come and talk to council at any time they chose, any month they chose. They merely have to make the request. So I'm not buying into the whole concept just yet. If you want to speak, come and speak. But to say you aren't being heard, first you need to speak. Thank you.
So we can have further conversation on how the next steps on that. Okay. Any other comments in regards to 10.2? Seeing none, I'll move on to information items. Eorin Salgap project update, September 2025. Again, information item provided. Any further comments or questions in regards to, Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. I don't know what page it is. I haven't brought it up. When it shows the locations of these towers, I just looked down through to Leeds Thousand Islands, and I see one here that says Leeds Thousand Islands, 401 at Rockport, blah, blah, blah. Then we have one location, Thousand Islands. Where would that be? Is it on an island somewhere? It just says Thousand Islands in Leeds and Thousand Islands Township. Page 3.
Kind of like Morton, same thing.
Fifth one down.
It's like, that could be anywhere.
Could be anywhere.
Okay.
And I'm curious as to the locations of these
We can
towers.
request further specificity from Eorin.
And maybe a map showing where they're actually filling in, because I know lots of places
So
they're
the
not
next
filling in.
slide, do they speak back to one another? No? Okay. Sorry. I went through this last week, so we can ask for some specificity. What slide was that on? Okay, which
Page 3 of 6.
Page 3
Page
of
3 of
the report, Madam Clerk. So we're looking for some more specificity.
Yeah, like most of them will say Highway 2 and 401 intersection, Thousand Islands Bridge, Benson Park Road on Hill Island.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden we have one that just says Thousand Islands.
Yeah. Okay. We shall ask for more information.
Give me a map,
Give me a map. We can
Please.
probably get that.
please.
Okay, any other questions in regards to the Eorin Salgap project? And next, we have Rise and Report minutes from committees, working groups, and local boards, which is 12.1 TLTI Library Board. And we have their report. Any discussion or questions in regards to the library? We do have the library CAO in the gallery today if you have questions. I would just like to say congratulations on Library Week. It was really great to be part of that, along with the town crier / counselor. The quilt, the barn quilt that you've put up on the side of the building is very attractive and really denotes how everything's interwoven at the library. And we know that libraries are not just about books these days, and that you and your staff have worked extremely hard to diversify what services you offer. And it was really nice to celebrate that for Library Week. Also, clarify for me, is there still time to vote for the application, or is that closed? November 14th. Thank you. So if you haven't already, please go and support the application for our library, looking for funding from Commonwealth, which is an insurance company. And we have an application there, and we will make sure that the link is on our website and we share it a couple more times before then. So please make sure that you support our public library bid for funding to put a maker's creative space in. That is the goal. Any other comments? And now we're on to notices of motion. Ms. Kelman, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Going back to the delegation that was here earlier this evening, I would like to make a notice of motion that we ask staff to come back to us with some solutions for Sunday parking in Rockport specifically. And if we could expedite that if possible, so that we can hopefully find a solution to help them out.
Okay. Any other notices of motion? Go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Foti, I did put on this agenda that you had asked for a letter to CN. I just would like some more clarification about what you want in that letter, if possible, please.
So the letter is in regards to maintenance or flooding or gates or all of the above.
I'll get clarifications of the clerk on that.
Okay.
It was regards to what has been most recent. You're right, Your Worship. We could pick an angle, but we'll specify the one most recent. Thank you.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Sorry, through you, Your Worship, just a notice of motion. I'll bring forward next week for parking relief in the village of Ivy.
Parking relief?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Lackey, parking relief, Village of Ivy Lee. Okay. Any other notices of motion? I have no hands up. So I will go to statements or announcements from councillors. Go ahead, Councillor, maybe.
Excuse me. As mentioned earlier, the Santa on the Boat will be happening this Saturday in city cruises down on the waterfront, 12 to 1 or 11 o'clock city cruises, I guess. There's been some changes in how that works. So on Facebook, it has some of the information. The Rotary Club of Gananoque is supporting this one. May 25th, Interval House, the flag raising in town of Gananoque, 5:30 for anybody who wants to be there. Gananoque Santa Claus Parade, November 29th again. And I will be at the Gananoque Cenotaph for Remembrance Day, representing the township. And that's it. Thank you.
Announcements, other announcements. Go ahead, Councillor Antoine Hartley.
So Santa Claus Parade's coming up in Lyndhurst and in Lansdowne. So I hope everybody's going to either be sitting on a float or taking part somehow, because this is the best time of year. The Sealy's Bay Pastoral Charge auction is coming up on Saturday, the November the 8th. If you want to have a real fun evening, because we have a auctioneer, well, we make an auctioneer out of one of our our folks. If you want to come out and start your Christmas shopping right away, there's some unique items that you can take advantage of. It starts at 5:30 with a wine and cheese and a viewing of the of the things that are up for auction. And the auction itself starts exactly at 6:45. So as I said, come on out and have a fun evening.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I would just like to thank the residents that came out for the survey discussion, I guess, through Idea Inc. Dino was there. Director Dave Holliday was there. Our acting CAO and Marnie was there, along with my colleagues, Councillors Kelman and Antoine Hartley. There was a great turnout at Sealy's Bay that night. It was well done. It was well explained. They were polite, courteous, listened to the whole presentation, asked questions frequently. They're well engaged. I think the future, what that may be of the Sealy's Bay Hall, is well started. And I know under the Director's Holliday's hands that will continue. And there will be other public consultation. But I just want to say I was proud as a member of council here to see the activity there that night. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or statements or announcements from councillors? I have a very brief mayor's update this week. Obviously, Remembrance Day ceremony is happening in and around the municipality. So we have Rockport, Sealy's Bay, Lyndhurst, Gananoque, and Lansdowne, I believe. So please check our website for times. I will be attending Sealy's Bay this year. And always try to get out to Rockport because they do it at different times, so I'm able to get to two. So if you haven't already made your plans, please be sure to take the time to honor those who have served and continue to serve, protecting democracy and freedoms here and abroad. It is a very important day. That day is we are closed on November the 11th. So the municipal offices and the waste site, I believe, are closed on that day. So please check our websites for changes in Director Holliday. Our waste sites are closed on the Tuesday and open on the Wednesday, or how is that working? I'm asking you to go by memory, but we can make sure that it's posted on the website and correctly.
I believe we are closed on the Tuesday, but I don't think that they're open on the Wednesday. I'll have to confirm that for
Okay, fair enough. So please check our website for specifics. I too would just like to thank everybody who's been participating in both the Sealy's Bay initiatives as well as the community groups that have been working to help recruit doctors. There is movement within the community, and we will continue to update the community. We have a visitor coming from abroad that's looking at our community. So fingers crossed, everyone. We know that there's movement still here at the Lansdowne Medical Center as well, St. Lawrence Medical Center, I should say. But there's lots of things that are happening and lots of great initiatives that our locals have chosen to champion, and look forward to seeing some of those plans come to fruition. And I believe that is everything. Oh, and everybody had a safe Halloween, and thank you to the fire folks who made sure that everybody was safe on not such a nice night. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a thought I had when you mentioned the Remembrance Day. It's so great to see Nancy Payne being recognized as the recipient of the mother being recognized for what's the proper name of it?
Cross?
Silver Star, thank you. The Silver Star medallion. There was a great picture on social media here the last couple of days, a professional picture of her taken wearing that medallion. Excuse me, and a great picture it was. All cameras and eyes will be on her in Ottawa on November the 11th. And as we all know here, she and her husband have been at this memorial here in Lansdowne, as well as others since this happened. So it's great to see somebody local that we can relate to for that. I don't want to call it a distinguished, although it is. It's a medallion that no mother ever wants to earn. But nonetheless, she's being recognized.
Thank you. And the one thing that I did forget, applications are still being received for Ward 3 candidate. So if you have an interest, please make sure you have your application in by 4:30 on Wednesday. So that has to be received by the clerk at 4:30 on Wednesday. Thank you. Okay, so moved by Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the Committee of the Whole resolve into Committee of the Whole closed session in order to discuss an item that relates to closed session minutes September 8th, 2025, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, municipal drain tribunal appeals. So, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed, and we're carried. So we will go into in camera. Be turned off.